Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart for joining us as a sponsor. Quality Auto Mart was born in 1985. They are owned and operated by Mark and Nancy Repke. Quality Auto Mart provides all the services, repairs, and maintenance for your vehicle's needs with a 3-year auto parts and labor warranty. They offer complimentary vehicle safety inspection and estimates. Also, they offer a shuttle service, and the 4th oil change is always on them. They are located at 7307 on State Road 46 in Batesville, Indiana. Make sure you give them a call at 812-934-2301.
Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson, being joined by Kyle Crawford as he trash talks me all the way to the garbage can. What's up there, Mr. Kyle?
Oh, just got off of work. I was half asleep, I think, driving over here. I'm not really sure how I even got over here. And now I'm ready to go. I got to laugh at your expense, and so
I'm glad I could help you.
I'm wide awake now. I got a whole thing of coffee in. It was good,
Yeah, it's a good thing we don't record all of what we have termed foreplay because that always gets pretty good. But it was at my expense today.
It was.
I mean, you're laughing at me.
Well,
it really wasn't that funny.
One of the new podcasts, which you told me to listen to, I started listening to at the very end of their show. They do the cut part, and they all the stuff, all the quote unquote foreplay that they talked about before. They put this compilation at the end of it. It's pretty good.
It's the fun stuff, really. Yeah. That's what kind of gets your brain going, get you moving.
Yep.
All right. So what are we talking about today? Today's a great subject because I think, how sometimes like last show we talked about, man, this show really convicts me. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in the middle on this one.
Okay.
I'm like, I got this part pretty good, but then I find myself sort of sucking into some of the other parts. And so maybe it's just part of being a male and part of just growing up and maturing, which It's taking a while. It's taking a while.
Well, I think we've kind of danced around some of this idea. We're going to be talking about the difference between like a boy question, what a question that might be asked towards a boy versus an actual a question that a man should be able to answer. Actually a strong dad, a strong man, and I think we've danced around some of these questions. But today I think we're going to hopefully solidify the difference and kind of actually show the true difference between the two.
Yeah. So they're questions. So the idea is they're questions though that you formulate within your own head. Things that not that you answer, but you somehow propose them to yourself.
Yeah.
And so almost through that self-talk, like, well, should I do this or should I do that? Kind of like the devil and the angel sitting on the shoulders kind of thing. About. Yeah. So, and you love tests anyway. So let's put you through some tests today.
Oh boy, I'm not. Yeah, Merle, I'm hoping I pass this one, though. The vast majority of the tests in my life, I fail. So I'm hoping I can pass this one.
Well, there's an alternative. If you don't pass the one series, that means you did pass the other series. So you'll get a mark on one of them.
Jenny, you're about to find out if you're married to a boy or a man. It's confession hour here.
There you go. Okay, let's thank our sponsors first. We would first like to thank Quality Auto Mart for sponsoring the Strong Dads podcast. So we thank those guys out there at the Quality Auto Mart. For any of your automotive needs, check those guys out. They're located right outside of Batesville, Indiana on Route 46. So check them out, and I'm sure they can help you out.
Good deal. We would also like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Premier Garden Center, outdoor needs. Check them out. Home decor. They got an unbelievable facility up there off of State Line Road. So check them out. Let them know we sent you up there. I really do appreciate Casey's Outdoor Solutions.
All right. Very good. So Proverbs 23:7. It sounds best when you read it out of the King James Version, because this is a one that you've heard it before many times, but it is the phrase of, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. In other words, this is actually kind of down the lines of when you get trained up in counseling, there's cognitive therapy. And cognitive therapy is the idea of it's the thoughts that you have that lead to the behaviors that you exhibit. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you're having problems with certain behaviors, you better start to wrap your head around how the thought process came to be, what you're thinking about, what you start chasing. And so there's a lot of truth to that. There's nothing new. I mean, this, like we said, this is in scripture. So the idea here is, what are you thinking about? What sort of questions do you find dancing around in your head? And if you don't, if the answers to these questions tend to get you stuck, tend to not produce the kind of fruit that you want, then maybe we need to start asking different questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about. And so the types of questions, we're going to break them into two categories: boy questions and man questions.
Oh boy.
Right? Boy questions and man questions, because a boy's brain, his thinking, is very different than a man's thinking, or that at least should be.
Yeah.
Okay. And the confusion is the physical body. Well, you can see a guy who's 6'4" and 250 pounds and think man, but that doesn't mean inside his brain he's operating as a man.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And this makes me, I've referred a lot back to the Man series by Brian Tones with Crossroads.
Yeah.
And he talks exactly what you were saying, that there are 7-year-old boys out there, and then there's 17-year-old men out there.
Yeah.
And there's a huge difference. And I think, just kind of, it really drives home this idea, the verse you read in there in Proverbs, this idea that what you are thinking and the questions you're contemplating in your own head really say a lot about if you are that man or if you're still in boyish ways. And, hopefully as we kind of go through some of these questions, man, if any of these questions that you've kind of thought about spark some kind of take you back to when you've asked yourself that, man, I would just, because this is, for me, in the firehouse setting that I work in, man, I can't tell you how many times, instead of just keeping those thoughts up in my head, how many times we actually speak those things, right? And then after you say it, you're like trying to grab those words, like, why did I just say that, you idiot, right? And man, I think some of you guys out there, can relate to that, because it's just this vicious cycle. And I think truly what it comes down to is we are allowing, we're really allowing evil and Satan to kind of grab a hold of our thoughts, and then he's like, spewing it out of our tongues, and then that's when truly the damage is kind of done there.
Yeah. And as you were talking about that, I was sitting there thinking, and are they the kinds of things that I would say in any kind of company?
Yeah.
Or do I just reserve this for a particular company? Because if I said it in front of my wife or in front of my boss or whatever, how would it go? Again,
Jenny would be like, "How was work?" I'm like, "Babe, you don't even want to know the things that were spoken. It's best if you don't know." And again, that's very convicting to me, because it's like, golly, man, these are guys I spent a third of my life with. We could be spending our time around the kitchen table talking and thinking about a lot of other things, but the things that we say, whew.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember even as a younger kid, I would go and work at my dad's shop. And my dad didn't cuss too much at home. He did a little bit, but not too much at home. But at work, as a little kid, I would watch all those guys that worked for my dad. And man, they were just, and I kind of thought it was funny when I was a kid, like, whoa, and I remember thinking, Dad could never talk this way at home, So you kind of gravitate towards your own environment, and either you stand up and rise above it, or you get meshed right in with it. And I've been guilty of both, and probably meshing more in with it more than standing up against it.
More than I want to admit.
All right. Let's run through some examples of questions. And this is not an exhaustive list. I mean, the brain, at the end of it, we'll talk about like, well, what's the seed of all of these questions? Because if we can grab the seed, we'll get a better idea of how we can do much better at asking the right kinds of questions. So these are like examples of boy questions. Okay. One, let's just be right up front. One of them is, how am I going to get laid tonight? Right. It's always about sex, something about sex. All right. So yeah. Never had that thought before. Okay. How about go to the next one?
What if I still have that thought now, though? Now that I'm married, Merle.
It can still be a boy, right? It can still be a boy.
I just want clarification.
That's why we didn't say whether we were married or not, because your wife will say stuff like, that's all you ever think about. Okay. And again, so we're going to get to whether that is good or bad. Okay. We're going to get to that. But yeah.
What about this next one? This idea of how can I arrange my schedule so that I can do what I want.
Oh,
what I
man.
want. And man, a perfect example of this is think of yourself, these obviously questions don't say if you're married or not. Think of yourself before you got married.
Yeah.
And then if that idea of what can, how can I get my schedule to do what I want to do? And all of a sudden you get married and you're still having those same thoughts. And then even worse, what happens when you start having kids?
You got to get super creative, don't you?
You got to get really creative. But I think, man, because these are thoughts that I have. I'm like, how can I get away to go play golf? What does my schedule look like to be able to go play golf? How much time can I go spend in my shop? These are thoughts that I continually have. And just, it's just that angel and the devil on the side, right? You have to be like, all right, bro.
Yeah.
Like, not today, right? Not today, Satan.
Yeah. Yeah. Before marriage, you could play golf 5 days a week and you were actually exhausted from playing so much golf. Now it's like, oh man.
I think Satan was like, you know what? I'm not gonna make you like golf as much as you do now. And then all of a sudden I get married and have kids. You're like, now you're really gonna like golf.
Yeah,
dang this low-hanging fruit in front of you, right?
Temptation. Yeah. Here's another one. This is, and man, I'll tell you, this is a tough one. But you can tell this is throughout the population. How can I get rich quick? In other words, how can I make a lot of money with very little work? If you don't believe that's a problem, then do you buy lottery tickets, right? Are you always looking for the cheap, fast, quick, easy way? We have guys, obviously there's an entire dark market on drug sales and everything else. So how can I get rich quick? That's boy thinking. That's a boy question.
Well, I mean, this one, almost goes back to the first one, but how can I, flirt with the secretary or somebody that's at, that a coworker or not even a coworker? How can I just flirt with this girl to kind of like, see how smooth I am, kind of play the game a little bit. Heck, we've had guests on the show that talk all about this idea of seeing how many girls that they can quote unquote conquer. I think were some of the exact words and goes exactly back to that the boyish, mindset and the boyish questions you kind of ask.
Yeah. How can I get away from my family to go hang out with the guys? All right. So in other words, when your family is kind of creating a little bit of fatigue or it's the same old, and you're really working around like, man, I want to go hang out with my guys or just be around them versus your family. So how can I hang out with my guys?
And this is a tough one for me, Merle. The vast majority of my buddies are still single.
Yeah, you've talked about that. That is tough.
It is very hard because they're still living the bachelor life, right? And it's trying to keep that balance. I continually have to wrestle with, okay, I know that we have a group text message. I know that they're all hanging out, and it's just like, and then I look and it's just like, it's Jenny and I. The girls are in bed. It's like, well, we're not really doing anything, right?
Right.
But then what does that say to Jenny?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. You're thinking about being with your friends, as if I'm second fiddle or not enough.
Yep.
Yeah. How about this one, man? I'll tell you, this is tough. This is really tough for the late teenage boy all the way up. I see this, up into the 40s. How can I impress others so they think more highly of me? And it doesn't mean it can't be well past the 40s, but the idea of how I can grab other people's attention to either remember, we've talked about men want to be respected.
Yeah.
We don't seek the love as much as we seek the respect. And so whether it's, I want these guys to think, man, he's pretty good at this or that or whatever. So trying to get other men's approval or to think highly of me.
Yep. Man, I can't. Man, I'm really convicted here, Merle. This idea of why does crap always just keep happening to me? This idea of almost like putting yourself in the victim kind of mentality that it's like this is happening because of all these external factors, right? It's nothing I'm doing. Why does this stuff keep happening to me? I think I'm a good person, and I just think it just, man, what a terrible way to think that it's everyone else's fault that something's not going right for you.
Yeah. I mean, we've done entire shows on victim mentality.
Yep.
As we are recording this, we are off of the heels of the Bengals losing the AFC Championship game, and I refuse to partake in the discussions about how the referees stole the game.
Yep.
It's all over,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's just no way, especially with all the work that we do, there's no way that getting stuck in that mentality is going to do anything to help those guys go back and start for the planning for next year.
Mm-hmm.
They're a heck of a team. They've got a lot of talent. They made mistakes. Okay, so let's move on. And so the idea here of not blaming and wondering why you're the victim.
Yep, man. This next one, I think there's actually probably a lot more than just the idea of the social media. I think that this idea of where can I get my next dopamine hit from?
Oh man, yeah.
Where's that next adrenaline rush that I'm going to get from getting likes or getting attention on social media or whatever that's going to look like? This idea, because I think it's ingrained in just the human nature to want to get the approval from anybody or the attention from people. And I obviously right now that what we currently live in with the phones, the accessibility to get on social media, I think that's trying to get that next like on social media. And if social media is not it for you, what is it then? When can I get the next dopamine hit?
Yeah. The last one we have on here is just real, I think, speaks highly to the boy mentality, and that is the idea of what will it cost me monthly? Like what will it cost me just today? I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I won't worry about down the road. What's it going to cost me today? So that's why, when we're going to look at cars, the salesman's quick to say, well, this one's only going to be $285 a month, because that's the short-sighted boy they're talking to. Well, I can afford $285 a month. That's no big deal versus, $40,000 for that car.
Or they're like, $285 or whatever a month for the next 8 years.
Yeah. For the rest of your life, we can own you.
Well, Merle, I think as you look at all these questions, I think it just that there's kind of a common theme that you really start to see with a lot of those questions, and it's the me factor in it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those questions are revolving around you and what you can do and how you can do it and what you can do in order to get XYZ. And it just really drives home this idea that boyish questions that you're having, they really revolve around a selfish nature.
That's it in a nutshell right there.
There's just a huge selfish nature that's involved with those. And again, if you're anything like me, I think we all fall into these at some point, whether it be, hopefully it's not on a daily basis or an hourly basis. Hopefully it's one of these that they do kind of creep in there, because I think, naturally we are men. We do have desires we want to achieve, right? So I think there's naturally some selfish mindset that you go through. But again, we're talking to strong dads. We're calling ourselves out just as much as we're calling everyone else out.
Yeah. Well, when my 12-year-old boy is stuck on why things aren't going his way, it's pretty easy for me to understand it and go, hey, you know what? You're going to have to learn to get through that and actually help them realize a different way of thinking so he's not as frustrated and disappointed. But as we start to turn this boy into an adult age male, all right, now we have to really see, when we see guys acting all full of self, that's where the term here in the last 10 years just has blown up of the narcissist, the narcissism. And it's not nearly as fun and cute. It's one thing when you see your 10-year-old boy acting like a little knucklehead, but when you see your 30-year-old young man and he's just as much of a selfish punk, it really starts to not work well in lots of different areas, relationships and work and all these things. So the selfishness is the key to understanding how the boy brain works. All right.
Yep.
So we probably better look at, well, what would it look like or sound like to train ourselves to ask man questions? Okay. Yep. What would that be like?
Yep. Man, this first one is spot on. How can I make the team better? And that team could look like many different things, whether it's coworkers, whether that's actually your wife, whether that's your family as a whole, with your kids. Man, I just think looking at your team again, I just refer back to the Man series with Brian Tomes. He did a whole thing on being a team player versus kind of looking for the MVP. I want to be the most valuable player, right? No, the man is seeking to be a team player, and he actually went back and he played a video from Kevin Durant when he won the MVP in the NBA, and in the video clip that he pulled from, Kevin Durant went through every single person on his team, including the utility people back in the locker room that are washing the uniforms, and the trainers back in the gym. He went back and gave them credit for they're the reason I'm here. He went back and talked about his mom, and his mom is a true MVP, that she is the reason that he's in that position. So it's just idea, how can, looking at a whole collective, the team, not just, what are the things that I do that make my team so much better, right? What are the things that your wife is doing? What are the things that your kids are doing? And then from that, what can I do to make them better? Yeah. I think is a huge point.
Yeah. A good follow-up question to that is, who do I need to check in on today? I really just am consumed with checking in on me all day, making sure that I'm okay.
Yeah.
And, that's the boy. And so the man is, you know what? I need to just check in on my parents today. I need to check in on how so-and-so's doing. I heard the other day that he was going through a difficult time. I just need to shoot him a text or give him a quick phone call. I need to be thinking of how somebody else is doing rather than just me.
Yep. Man, this next one, Jenny and I were big advocates of checking in on calendar and making sure, and I'll give credit where credit's due. This is totally a Jenny thing. She is all about the calendar. And I do a terrible job of checking in and be like, hey, babe, I see this is on the calendar. Do you need help with that?
Yeah.
Because, I think, Jenny, she'll openly admit it. She struggles with asking for help. But as again, going back to what can I do to make my team better, I should know the things that my family needs, especially when it comes to the calendar. What can I step in this place and help you out? Can I pick the girls up from school because I know you have a late meeting? This is something that I struggle with. But these are the thoughts, again, if I want to consider myself a strong man, a strong dad, like these are the things, these are the questions I need to actually start actually contemplating, actually be having with myself. Like, what can I do to help the calendar, fill in the spots, cover things to make the life easier for my team?
Yeah, that carries the load. Yeah. Here's one that, I don't know, like I'm wired this way. I know you are too. What needs to be fixed around the house? The mechanics of the house. I've dealt with many women over the years, and one of the most frustrating things that they'll talk about is when their house is there are easy fixes that are just not being taken care of. That light has not worked forever. He says he's going to take care of this or clean this up or do this, and she has to walk through it every day or deal with the dysfunction, and it's at his fingertips to fix. Yeah. So what needs to be fixed up around the house? Now you might go, well, man, you don't know, like I'm not handy. I don't care. Make the phone call. It's when your wife has to go pick up the hammer and go hang the pictures and do all this that you are falling short of being able to serve her well.
Man, what about this idea of how are my wife and kids doing? Like what a manly question to ask. Not just ask yourself, but then go ask them. Yeah. That is so huge. This is a kind of a double-edged sword for me. Like sometimes I go back to the boyish ways. I give myself an excuse why I'm not as in tune with my girls because they're girls, right? I'm a boy. They're a girl. And Jenny is very in tune to, what they actually need. And man, that is such a boyish way to think and to act because all I have to do is look at my girls and say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And for the most part, I feel like we do a pretty good job at the dinner table asking those, but then asking some follow-up questions when it's just like, I'm doing great. And then, you just leave it at that. Like ask some follow-up questions to really kind of dive deep to get in tune with that.
Yeah. Yeah. How about this one? We talked about this a few times on different shows. What's the next training or educational opportunity that I'm going to take to improve myself in my workplace or my family or my relationships? Not to just improve myself on how well I shoot my gun. Okay. That's a boy thing. And I'm not, by the way, those things aren't bad and evil. Okay. Right. It just shows you if those are my big deals. Yeah. All right. Versus, okay, like if I was better at work at this area, I could help that whole team better. Or if I was better at communicating, man, think of how it would impact the quality of the relationships in my family.
Yeah. I think this next one, this idea of who are you giving the credit to? When you look at your successes in your life and the things that you have going on and the blessings that you have, who are you giving credit to? Is it, I did this is all me? Or are you actually giving credit where credit is supposed to be given to? Whether that is obviously the hand of God and the skills and abilities that you have, whether that's your spouse, building, that they're helping you, that they're coming along the ride with you. I just think who are you giving the credit to? And then obviously, on top of that, are you recognizing that God is in control of your life.
Man, I think that, yeah. And then which kind of trickles down into some that we have down here below, like the idea of, so what kind of role model are you being for your kids today? Ask yourself, what kind of role model am I? Am I somebody that my kids can look up to and trust that there's a level of integrity there, some strength there, the idea that I can count on dad, right?
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I mean, the idea of actually when you talk about being that role model, are you being a spiritual role model? Are you morally and ethically? Are you holding up your end of the bargain emotionally? Are you the person that your kids can look at and see strength there? Physically, are you present? Are you actually in the moment? Are you there for your kids? So, man, these are just again kind of bouncing around some of those ideas of being present with your kids and that role model that you want your kids to look at. It's not just the blanket statement of role model. I think there's a lot of kind of avenues that go into that.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one is the idea of what are my weaknesses and what am I doing about them? That's something that a lot of us just totally want to avoid. I'd rather spend time bragging about my strengths or talking about them or thinking of how awesome I am versus, these are some areas I need to work on. And so I think giving some due time to our weaknesses. I want to be careful here because we do have men that go the other way and they do nothing but dwell on their weaknesses and they get this failure victim mentality. I'm no good at anything. So trying to keep a little check and balance on, well, what am I doing with my weaknesses to improve them versus getting stuck by them?
Yep. I would think the boyish question would be, what is my love language? And then stopping there. I think the man side.
Well, we know that. It's from the first question. How am I going to get laid tonight?
Yeah. The flip side of that is, how does what is the love language of your spouse?
Right.
How does your wife want to be loved? I think is a crucial.
Man, I have messed that up so many times.
Oh my gosh.
I have messed
so many times because I think it goes back to having the boyish mentality. Like I have desires. I know the love language that I have. Jay should love me that way versus reciprocating and knowing that she has a love language.
That's very different than yours.
That's very different than mine. Yeah. And I just think knowing how your wife desires to be loved is huge. That is a man mentality. That's a man question to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Two more things here. One of them is, how am I taking care of my family financially? In other words, as a provider and a source of strength, remember your wife, her nature is to provide caring and nurturing. In other words, I can always go to mom when I just needed someone to talk to and to be cared for. Yours as a man is, how is this family going to feel provided for? Like the stuff's covered. Everybody's got what they need, especially when they're younger kids. So, what are you doing to make sure that those bills are going to get paid? Or have you allowed that to be totally on your wife's plate?
Yep. And then the last one, I think is really good. Just the idea of what type of legacy are you going to leave for your family? What type of whether it be in an interview or whatever, how many times have you been asked the question, like, what do you want on your gravestone? Like, what do you want on the head of your gravestone? Like, what do you want? Give me 5 words to describe yourself. Like, what are some of the legacies that you want to leave behind? Some of the principles, the character traits that you have that you're going to leave behind that your kids are going to remember. And hopefully they're going to remember like in a positive light, right? I mean, what's a legacy you want to leave behind?
Yeah. So we boil all this down and we talked about the boy questions, and the core of the boy questions is self. It's self, all right? The core of the man question is servant. The core of the man question is servant. And that is something that if you get frustrated with your kids, if things aren't going well with your relationships, chances are it's because you are not seeing them serve well, or you're not serving well. And that's when you don't serve people well, right away there's a tension and a conflict that comes up. People have to know that they're going to be served well. And when they know that, they start to build trust and relationship, and good things start to happen. Yep. If they don't feel that, then they gravitate towards self. Well, I'm just going to take care of me.
Yep. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't say that nobody is getting this perfect. We all struggle with this. I mean, I can't. If you're sitting back and saying you don't struggle with this, you're lying to yourself. The big thing here, the big takeaway is, yes, no one is perfect at this, but what are you doing to help change your mindset? What kind of accountabilities are you putting in place to hopefully get out of these boyish mindsets and kind of having these boyish questions, moving into, having true strong men, strong dad conversations in your head, these thoughts. We can't just sit and sulk in the failures that we've had in the boyish mindset, because again, that is a perfect example of being stuck in a boyish mindset. We have to move into hopefully, becoming and developing ourselves into a better man.
Yeah, I like the idea. Like, no one's mastered this except one, and that was Christ.
Yep.
Right. And so if you think you've got this mastered, like, well, this is not a big problem for me, then you are sharing some pretty big shoes there. Yeah. And so I think you might want to step outside of those shoes. But it doesn't mean we don't strive that way, right? Christ came as a model for us to try to emulate. And so I think it's important that we just start to get that picture. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to, in our show notes, I will copy and paste all these questions because I think they make for good conversation. Yeah. They make for good conversation of you being able to pick through and go, man, which ones do I gravitate towards? And hopefully that will, if you truly are interested in being the strong dad, the man versus the boy, you can start to recognize whether you have more of a selfish mentality or a servant mentality, or somewhere in the middle. Right. So I'll put those in the show notes.
I like it. Yeah. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Hopefully, after you guys look at these questions, kind of spark some conversations with yourself. Hopefully, again, sharing it with your spouse to see kind of where they think you're at. What a great test to see if your wife thinks she's married to a boy or a man. Let's ask the hard questions. As a strong dad, we're expected to do that. So I hope you guys are enjoying the show that we keep putting out. Share the heck out of these things. We that's how the word gets out there, because we're not by any means professing to be perfect at any of this stuff. We're along the journey with you guys. So I hope you guys know that. Thanks so much for Quality Auto Mart and Casey Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us, continue to allow us to keep putting these shows out.
All right. So we just want to thank you guys, like you just said. So do us a favor and close us out, Kyle, because I can't do it like you can.
Go out there and be some strong dads.
Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.